Hey everyone. Marcus said a bit different, and I take different as a positive thing in this sense, to be honest. Okay, first of all, my name is Tom. I work as a head of group procurement in Hurtigruten. So basically, I'm steering the totality of indirect. Indirect in Hurtigruten is everything from IT, marketing, finance, everything that falls between food and beverage and ship equipment like an engine or bridge stuff. So quite a big area. I will link the presentation towards IT, but to be able to do that, I need to go through who we are, what we have been struggling with, the path we're going, and what we're doing now to cope with it. So, what is Hurtigruten? I don't know if anybody knows it here, but it's pretty famous in certain parts of the world. Originally, it was made in 1893. It was the first ship was started sailing to get goods and post to a lot of the rural areas in Norway. Like Norway has the second largest coastline in the world, so basically it's a lot of small communities that didn't have a road access. So basically they got their mail once every month. So that didn't really work in the modern world in 1893. So then you put up a ship to be able to do that and deliver those goods. Nowadays, it's a bit different journey because who uses postage anymore? And we built some roads in our beautiful country as well, so it works better. But still goods, how to transport goods to these areas. We also bring passengers from one small community to the next, and then a lot of tourists to look at the beautiful fjords and islands and areas in Norway. As you can see, it's a long coast. It takes 12 days from Bergen and up and down again. So it's not a Bahamas cruise in a 4 days trip. It's actually 12 days with going in and out of ports. It's 34 of them in total. And of course, I remember the news a few weeks ago about the Northern Lights, or Aurora, all over the Northern Hemisphere, like all the one down into here. If you go up north, this is basically what you can see. So we're pretty proud of that. So we get lots of Aurora seekers from around the world just want to go and see the Northern Lights. We actually have a guarantee as well. So if they don't see it, they'll get their money back. So we're kind of eager to say that we'll see them quite a bit. And as you can imagine, it's 130 years old. Why does this guy talk about supply chain and IT stuff? It's because something happened in 2006. We figured we are really good at this. We are very good at what we do. So let's expand the business. So we built new ships, and we started a whole new fleet going around the world in the same type of waters, cold waters primarily, Antarctica, Argentina, Greenland, Northwest Passage, with new ships. So basically, we went from a local company, a very local company, where we knew basically everything. We bought everything local until we went global with a totally new setup. And just to make it even more difficult, we also put a ship in Galapagos, which is not in cold waters. It's in between somewhere. So as you can imagine, supply chain is kind of going through the presentation. But now you understand where we're at. Because we started in 2006, but all the ships were done in 1718. So 19 was the first year with the whole fleet going around the world. But then something happened. The whole world turned upside down. I don't really want to talk about a lot of these because we're sick of them, all of us, especially the pandemic and the war and inflation and all that stuff. You know that this has influenced all of you in different ways. But it's a few things which is hitting us as a tourism company a little bit more than maybe a land-based company. One is laws and regulations, especially due to the pandemic. We are taking passengers from between countries to countries. And every country has their own regulation in like, how many days can you be outside the country before you enter again, blah, blah, blah. Some countries banned marketing on travel. And as 95% of our guests are not from Norway, that kind of hits us pretty hard. So the pandemic was not good for us, and these things, in addition, just made everything a lot more harder for us. And so we need to purchase softwares to handle this, because how can we get regulations in Chile or in Punta Arenas in Argentina? It goes from it goes to Punta Arenas and it goes back to Ushuaia in a different country, and it takes 12 days. Is that enough for regulations? Do you need health certificates, etc., etc.? So we didn't have any. These softwares were not invented yet. It was lots of bits and pieces, but they were not interacting with each other. So it was kind of a manual integration between the softwares. I'll get back to the licenses and stuff afterwards. But as you can tell, it's a lot of just fix the problem. It's kind of been throughout the company because we want to give our guests the best experience ever. These are pretty costly trips, so you're going to get your money worth. So basically, we'll fix everything in the back, and the guests have the journey of their life. So that was the backdrop. Very shortly, because I want to talk to you from local to global. I've stated a few of them already, but the most important part is basically we're not sailing the Bahamas. We are not the cocktail sitting on top of a 10th floor ship. We are a smaller ship with lots of things happening on the ship, of course, but we're in the most dangerous waters in the world. We're like, if you go down from Argentina to Antarctica, you just can imagine, or the Northwest Passage, for example, stuff is going to happen. Things is going to break. It's salt water all over the place. So for hardware-wise, that's always the challenge. So basically, when we went from local to global, procurement had to start from scratch. The whole supply chain has to reinvent themselves, because what we bought in Norway, we maybe bought it at the local harbor somewhere on the 12-day journey because we needed it. That can happen now because the ship are on the other side of the world and it's not coming back. So we can't just fill it when it comes back to wherever in Norway. It's of course possible to fix this due to logistics, but logistics around the world, you can triple the price on anything you buy before it gets to the ship. And not even that, CO2 emissions. If we buy it in Norway, we ship it to Hamburg, but then we have a forwarder to Ushuaia. You have to wait 12 days before the ship comes in. It's very polluting. And as ESG is a part of our strategy, we need to think about in everything we buy. So basically, we want to do more things locally, but as we've chosen the most difficult parts of the world to sail in, also difficult. So we kind of have to look at that at all times. We also got a lot of rogue spend. I mentioned it a bit earlier. Due to we bought systems, we bought hardware just to fix stuff. But then the pandemic is over, you want to streamline, you want to save some money, then you look at rogue spend. And we basically have bought stuff from everywhere in the world just to fix things. It works, it's great, but it doesn't work in the long run. You can also think about, for example, for the ship engine or a pump or whatever. If you just have to fix that and you buy it locally somewhere, but the warranty is not connected to the engine and the engine fails, then we have a 30 million euro bill due to we bought something just to fix it. We can't continue to do that. So we had to reinvent all of this, everything to IT systems, which I'm going to go through a little bit later. The last one is how to evolve. We are at the point now that we're taking, as I said, I'm going to go through it. We are now kind of in control of where we are. So it's about how do we move forward. All of the other companies been up there here today, they fixed this already. They're kind of, for us, they're a mile ahead. But we're getting there. We just need to figure out what to purchase, how do we do it, how to implement it, how to do this worldwide, not just locally. In that sense, procurement or sourcing, we had to step back and say, what do we need to look at? First one is a scalable operating model. It basically means, or everybody knows what it means, but it's about finding what has to be where, in which box, about resources, being able to handle it. And then we have the spend under management. Same thing, it basically means that if we're not taking care of the rogue spend, if we're not doing this as a global partner, we're going to pay a lot more, which means that the bottom line is going down. And as the company is growing, not a good thing because we want to have the profitability to stay put with the top line growth. During the Corona, we also figured a lot of people were changing jobs. I think that's throughout the world. People kind of quit or due to maybe layoffs during Corona. All our ships was in layup, so basically nobody could work. So we lost a lot of people during that period that they find other things to do. So again, we have to start from scratch in what happened before. We have to fill the gaps instead of using what happened before Corona as a knowledge. We had to figure it out from the beginning. So in how to evolve, we also have to look at what is the new Hurtigruten. And if you look at the map earlier, I showed the Norwegian flag. It was kind of easy, or at least easy for us, as we've done it for more than 100 years. This is just one interior for one ship. So it's starting in Iceland, going across the northwest, along the west coast of the US, and all the way down to Antarctica, where it stops and it goes back up and down to Antarctica for 3 months. After the 3 months are done, turns around, go back up, and do the Northwest Passage for 3 months. So then it comes the comparison, because before we were big. We were a big spender in the local communities or in Norway or Scandinavia, because we bought everything there. As half of our fleet are now abroad, somewhere, and the rest of the half are still in Norway, we are not a big fish in the pond anymore. We're a little bit smaller in Norway than we was before, and we are very small in the global setup, only having 7/8 ships around the world. Comparison to the big ships, for example, we're not even shown on the map. So we're smaller with less negotiation power. In addition, the international ships, they don't have a home port. That means that they don't have one port they always go back to. As I said, for example, the Antarctica season goes back up to do the Northwest. If we figure out, let's go to Greenland, yeah, that's fine. Because we don't have a port it's going back to. So it's nothing, a base where we can just ship everything, store it there, put it on the ship, and we're done. Also make the logistical side a bit iffy. Then we have the culture. Due to being global, the culture also needs to change. We were very Norwegian in all the good stuff that means. But going global, we also need some international cultural changes. So we are building up a HQ2 in London. We also have offices around the world, Hong Kong, Melbourne, US, several places around the world, which also brings in a lot of the cultural, not issues, but we need to have strong policies in place and systems ready when we bring in a lot of different cultures. So we actually know this is the path we're going, so we don't just increase the rogue spend. So that's also something we're working on. I'll come back with some samples. And then we have the supply chain. We have about 2,000 items, IT or close to IT, that we purchase. Somebody can be one-offs, and the other ones can be on a regular basis. So as you can see, it's not like one-stop shop. We have to have, first you have Norway, Scandinavia, easy, the world. Okay, what about, an example is, for example, it's not to IT, but it's a iPad cover, but it had to have a strap, and it had to be waterproof, and it had to have a second strap because it was used on our Zodiacs on the water. That's just one example. We needed 6 of them, and then you needed 200 of a different one, because then when you took the iPads on the ship, you had to change it, and it has to have a different lookout. So just small things like that just makes our day fun, but also challenging, to be honest. But if you buy that in Europe and you send it to Antarctica, do the math, it's going to be costly. And then the last part, or not last, but it says ESG. I'm not going to talk too much about ESG because this is basically procurement, but ESG it's very important to us. It's based in the strategy, buy local, source local as much as you can. as everybody is working on, the Transparency Act was kicked in the 1st of July, which basically means we have to be able to find out the emissions to tier 3. In IT, it's not too difficult, but we have to do that all around for everything we do. So basically, we send out an ESG report each year, and that's one of the things that makes us different than a lot of the other cruise companies. We are cruising in delicate waters. If something happens in these areas, it's not good, to be honest. We are in, for example, Antarctica. We have whales, we have nature, wildlife that's never seen something throwing up across the ship, or plastic or whatever. So all plastic on the ships, for example, are banned. Also, another example is external restrictions. A lot of places we're now sailing in, we can't sail there after 2025 if you don't do anything with fuel and fuel emissions. So basically, for example, it's a UNESCO fjord called Geirangerfjorden, which is the most popular fjord in Norway. It's absolutely beautiful. After 2025, we can't sail there if we don't change our ships. And changing ships, then you forget about the IT cost. That's just a cost which are massive, and we're working on that now. It's about doing hybrid, about battery-driven, LNG, stuff like that. But as you change, also IT equipment on the ship has to change. It has to be adapted to whatever you're doing on the ship. So, as again, coming back to it, notebooks. I took the most beautiful one I found online. We don't have too many on the ships. We only had about 110 per ship. And then you multiply by 15, not a lot. Like most companies talking here today have multiple ones more than that. But then again, it's about weather, waves and salt. I bet that we run through our computers a lot faster than BCG does on the office. So it's a cost. It's a big cost for us. So what do? How do we standardize? Do we standardize something that's more rigid due to this, or how do you do the supply chain to get this on demand to the ships? A lot of things has to be done on the computers as well. Security patching, if it's imaging that can't be done on the ship due to lack of connectivity, etc., etc. So many things that need to be done by the computers before they go on a ship, things that you don't even think about if you're in the office. And due to this, Corona hit us pretty hard. You can read about it if you Google our company. We are doing a lot better now, but procurement had to put into place something called spend management. So basically, what do we do? All dollars has to be accountable. So we figured, let's go into and say, what do we do with the money? We're using a lot of money. Where does it go? It's a saying it's expensive to be poor. And that's actually true sometimes. It's not that we were poor, but as you have lost a lot of money, you have to be in really control of what you spend your money on. So we had to start with get the mandate. So procurement got an extended mandate. After we got the extended mandate, we had to figure out where are we. So before COVID, we were on the left-hand side, which basically said fragmented and ad hoc. Then we will say we're in the centralized and planned stage as we do now, which means that food and beverage and engine stuff are pretty much okay. My area, indirect, is not okay. I don't know if that's my fault or not, but that's when I came into the company. So basically, I hope to take us all up to the next stage, which is the strategic and aligned. But to be able to get there, we have to have some processes to figure out what do we use our money on. So we introduced something called the spend approval program. So basically, everything in the indirect have to be pre-approved by procurement. All travel, all purchases throughout the company. And as we don't have a P2P system, this is very interesting. We send it to something called a Jira, Atlassian. So me and my team are actually sitting on this each and every day to approve, ask questions back. Why do you need this? Do you need make examples, etc., just to get a control of the spend. As of now, I think we already saved about 11% on the total usage of money within the indirect category due to introducing this. Second one is going into workshops with everyone in the company, all areas of the company, and saying, hey, this is the cost I'm seeing you're putting to the company. What is it? Is it something we can change? Is it something we need to enhance? This is mainly not to save money. It's basically what are we buying? Can we do it differently to even do it better or more costly if it gains us in any sense? And the third one is that we have too many projects going on at the same time. So we didn't really finalize one or the other. They were really running for a long time. So we put out something called the sourcing committee. So all projects throughout the company has to have a business case, has to go through a committee, which I'm a part of myself, and that we can go through the project and say yes, or put it in a parking lot. So now what? Where are we? As I said, somebody wants to reinvent the wheel, AGA, a project. We figured it's good to be at meetings or summits like this because you can learn from what others do. Normally, what we have done before, it's like you buy something and you program yourself in a corner and you're stuck with it for years. So at the time, we are discussing with multiple partners, also having Markit as one of the partners we're discussing with, not on the P2P system, but how to do the hardware part. About control automation, but procurement needs to be a gatekeeper. That means that we can't stop what we've done before, as I mean, like have control mechanisms, because if we do, we'll just get back to where we started with rogue spend, about just losing control really fast. So we are writing policies now to how do we stop this, how do we do this going on in the future. And then it's about last one that everybody knows. We have basically been fighting fires instead of preventing them. So operational versus strategic. We don't want to fight the fires. We want to prevent them before they happen, because then we're going to do a lot better job in basically all sourcing or procurement we do. So how does this relate to IT? I've used a lot of time on the first slides to see, so see how it goes. In regards to IT in the changing environment, what does it mean to us? First one, we've been into the global versus local a few times. And this is more a nagging about the global partners more than anything else. But basically a printer. It's not a printer you put on the table. It's a 100 kilos printer that's supposed to be in a room in the ship. It weighs about 100 kilos. How do you buy it? It's easy to buy it. We have a global vendor that we purchase from, but then all the issues come. Because basically it's a global partner, but the global partner put their contract in the country, and that country has a budget. So it's not that we can kind of pick up this printer in Brazil and put it in a ship. It has to go from that country, even though it's a global partner, because then it goes out in the same budget from the company. I've been discussing that quite a bit with the company, but this is one of the parts where we were big in Norway. So basically, they listen to us. But as you go global and you have 7/8 ships around, you're a small fish in the pond. So you lose a lot of negotiation power that you had before. So this is something we've been struggling with, but we made it. And then the second part of this is ISBS. It means all our ships are international, so they're tax-free. So in general, it means you can buy from anyone, anywhere, tax-free, invoice sent to anywhere in the world, as long as the final address is on the ship, which is international. Not too many companies have done that before. So if you want to set up a process in a company when you're saying, yeah, I'm going to use €1 million with you the next year, and you say, I want it ISBS, that's going to cost them maybe €50,000, so that drives down their profitability. So a lot of vendors have basically said, no, we can't do that. Which means that all our costs basically go up 19, as I learned earlier, to 25%, just by not be able to buy on ISBS. Hence, again, we buy in Norway, because if you buy in the same country, you can retract the VAT afterwards. A lot of different things with the printer is not my favorite topic, because there's been so many issues with it, but that's fine. But in the end, we got the print on the ship. Sorry, we have to stop. We almost got the print on the ship. But the last mile, because the ship, it takes 14 days from Ushuaia down to Antarctica. We had to fly it in the last mile. Everything was set. We paid a fortune to do it. And then we got a notice, no, the hatch on the plane is too small. So we can't get it on the plane. No printer for the next 14 days. It doesn't seem like a printer means too much on a ship, but the guests wants to be informed. Lots of things has to be printed, actually. I didn't know it before I started either. So again, a hiccup takes 14 days. And the saga continues. It's called service. Another ship was going up the west coast of US, go up to Seattle. So we figured with a global partner, yeah, go on the ship, fix it. And they, yeah, we'll fix it. We got the serviceman on the ship. And it took about 2 minutes, and he was like, yeah, I have the US spare part, you have a European setup. Doesn't work. And then 2 days later, that ship was going over the Northwest Passage, going back in 28 days. No printer for a month. The captain was really happy. But this is just a funny story of like small things that seems very easy can be difficult when your ship is kind of a hotel floating in very distant rural areas. I have more things to say about it, but I have to jump on because the time is catching up. Cybersecurity, we had a IT hack in 2020. Not the funniest time in the company. It's very important to us that this doesn't happen. And you can understand why, because if you do that, the ship can basically crash or people can get injured. Why I bring it up here is because it has tons to do for procurement or sourcing in this sense, because you have to go through everything you have. All vendors you have in the book has to go through a security annex, updated security annex. You have to see proof of penetration testing. You have to have continuous testing out in the market. That's why it's like procurement. Why are we involved? It's because we are the gate from vendor to IT. So if we not to like overburden the IT personnel with all these questions, you have to know quite a bit of this area to be able to get the IT to cope with all the burden to do this. And I have an example here as well. Like we have been doing pretty well. We used a lot of money on this because it just can't happen. A couple of months ago, we put a hacker on one of our ships. Yeah, try now. Now you can't get through anything. And he was like, he sat there and he tried lots of things and he couldn't get through. And in the end, he was like, it's a CCTV camera in the hall. And he saw the brand. I was like, yeah, let's try this. So he just went on the brand name homepage, found the admin password on the brand name homepage, tried it, got through. Of course, it was a mistake from our side, but that's where like we have to hire people to do this job. Just be able to close these gaps. Because if he can do it, other people, if they want to, can do it. IT licenses, I don't know how much we want to talk about this. This is also in the printer area hassle part. IT licenses is fine. Vendors, you can always buy more, you can never buy less. It's kind of a standing sales pitch in licensing area. Of course, we have standardized what we use, but as I said again, we just put 7 ships on to different areas of the world. So basically, what do they need? Do they need GPS data from this part, or do they need mapping from that part? Whatever, it's been a lot of rogue spend. So what do we do? Because that costs quite a bit. You have auto-renewals clauses that's impossible to get out of, etc., etc. And another example is basically we bought lots of licenses in Europe, but as some of the ships moved from Europe to America, some red blinker was blinking in Silicon Valley somewhere and saying, you haven't bought the license for South America, you bought it for Europe. It's under 50% more to get the license, but you can get it tomorrow. Those are things that we have to look into the IT procurement for Hurtigruten. I'll jump to the fourth one. It's basically we switched a different tool within SpendCube, and we actually found 1 million euros in different licenses that we're now looking into. I think I've removed about 250K already by either shutting it off completely or putting over to existing vendors. So again, about combination, doing the IT work, start from scratch, building yourself up. I'm very short on time. Very fast connectivity. IT, I guess IT in the office is fine. IT on the ship, not as easy. We use satellites. Very fast on this, we use Geo, which is the old satellite versions. Then a person called Musk shot out a lot of satellites with Leo, which are closer to Earth, which is a lot cheaper for us to be able to use. Because Geos, they were so expensive, so they put all these beams to equator, because that's where all the ships were. We were on the other side, so no beam was on North and South Pole. Very short words. And then we have the last one. It's basically IT stuff. I'm not going to stand there and saying how difficult that is, because it basically it's a lot of market people here, so they're going to not be too friendly afterwards. But we have, as I said, a lot of them that we purchase. So basically, in IT, 2,000 items. It's 80-20 rules, so 80%, 20% makes out 80% of the cost. So we have about 1,600 items of low value that we still need to put into system. And if we think IT is difficult, I also have something called expedition area, which is everything else. It's binoculars, books, zodiacs, kayaks, whatever. We have about 2,500 items there as well that we need to put into system very shortly. I could say a lot about the IT stuff area. You'll see the presentation later, so or you can read it if you want to. So, summary, local to global. It's a lot of fun. We were Norwegians. We're kind of blue-eyed and naive, but we went for it. We have had lots of problems doing it, but we had lots of fun doing it as well. 19, first year with all around, went great. The big problem for us has been the external factors. Luckily, those are kind of giving up a little bit now, so the booking numbers for 23, 24 are looking great and even better. So now it's about me and my team to get all this into system, how it should be. So I'll definitely learn from the other speakers today. It's basically bandwidth in the organization that it kind of stopped the development of how we want to be. So thank you very much for having me. It's my name, my email. If it's anything, let me know. We need help with the issues, so it's kind of a sales pitch as well in that sense. Let me know. I'm happy to discuss with you afterwards if it's anything. Thank you.